Welcome to our backyard. This is the Backyard Philosophy Podcast. We are two friends having a discussion after everyone else has passed out or gone to bed. Grab a drink and listen as we discuss everything from automation, space exploration, and why the meaning of life is 42.
Two giants face off. The oldest versus the youngest. The Pacific Ocean versus the Atlantic Ocean. In today's battle, we're going to find out who is the best ocean. But before we get into that, Nick, how are you and what are you drinking?
I am doing great. I got some Four Roses single barrel bourbon. I figured I'd go with some bourbon today, but surprisingly ran out of my favorite at some point in the past and never restocked it. So going with something new. What about you?
Well, I found it very fitting to go full cycle, and I found some Buffalo Trace to do this episode with.
Pacific versus Atlantic. I figure we start off saying what side we're on.
I was going to say, it's like that one we might need to draw the line in the sand, no pun intended, before we started fighting.
So, Mike, why don't you tell me what side you're on and kind of what drew you to that side?
I'm on the Atlantic Ocean side. It is, as we go through this podcast, fascinating. Utterly fascinating. The history amongst it is huge. You know me, I'm a big history buff. But also, it has a personal, sentimental level to me. I was lucky enough to go a couple times as a kid to the Atlantic Ocean, whether it be Florida or Myrtle Beach in South Carolina, and get to see those beautiful sunsets, to surf those waves, to relax in the beach, to swim.
So is it true that Myrtle Beach is the classiest beach in the Atlantic?
When you're poor, yes. I'll give you a hint, Nick. I'm not a rich man, so
well, the
yes.
fact that you said Myrtle Beach as opposed to anywhere else, you didn't actually have to tell us that fact, Mike. We knew.
All right, smart guy. Before we get into it, why are you on the Pacific Ocean side?
Well, first, most obvious, size matters, Mike. And it's fucking big.
Is it because this is the first time size is in your favor?
Yeah, first time size is my favor. So I'm going to play that card. I probably spent more time in the Atlantic Ocean, but the Pacific it's like the Wild West. It's untamed. It's huge. I currently live on the Pacific coast. I fish in the Pacific. I've seen it calm. I've seen it, 25, 30 foot waves. It's crazy. Just how much one area can change. And it's just, it's awe inspiring. Just if you ever seen a 30-foot wave hit the shore and then just splash all over everything, it's also terrifying, but I think that's why I like the Pacific more. I feel like it's more that wild, untouched ocean than the Atlantic. But and like I said, I fish in the Pacific all the time. Definitely done my fair share of fishing in the Atlantic as well. I'll give you this, Mike. That kind of Florida, Caribbean area, excellent fishing. I love it. It's great, but it has that settled feeling that the Pacific just doesn't.
Well, I think no one really wanted to settle the Pacific because, look how the Pacific got its name. After Magellan. What does Pacific again mean? Oh yeah, it means the calmness of water.
Which it is not.
I don't know. It's kind of hard to be a badass ocean when you are literally called the calmness of the water.
Well, Greenland's better than Iceland, right?
True. Well, that's another thing that we just happen to have bigger island than you. The Atlantic has the biggest island in the world. And, Pacific is second biggest island? Oh, yeah, that's right.
Okay, we're going to talk about number of islands? Because you're fucked there.
No, I'm talking about size. I thought size matters, Nick.
Well, size does matter. But
oh, wait.
You
it
have
doesn't.
Continents.
Okay. Oh, I'm not talking about continents. I'm talking about island size. Island size, Atlantic has the bigger ones. You have more, but they're itty bitty. They're little bitty islands.
We'll tell that to the Marines that fought for all of them.
I will not. But you tell all the British and Army and Navy that fought for them against the Germans.
So we're going to talk about how the Atlantic was such a shit show because it's so small. The U-boats just fucked everyone up.
Oh, I thought we were going to talk about how the Atlantic Ocean got its name in 6th century BC, meaning the Sea of Atlas. Like, we actually weren't named after... Oh, yeah, Magellan was a Portuguese explorer hired by Spain. So you're a misfit named Ocean. You don't even have any... That's just disappointing.
Again, because we're so fucking wild.
Not really.
When was the Atlantic Ocean discovered by Europeans? Fucking immediately.
Okay, when was the Pacific Ocean discovered by island Pacificers? Immediately.
Yeah, it was discovered by the Europeans in 1513. A little bit longer than immediately.
Okay, when were the Polynesians discover the Atlantic Ocean? I guarantee you it's after 1513.
Well, I'd say, so the people who crossed the Bering Strait land bridge between 30,000 and 160,000 years ago probably settled. So let's say, give them 10,000 years to get to the other side, earliest 170,000 to 20,000 years ago.
I feel like your math is very wrong.
Okay, so if the Bering Strait, so the people who walked over the bridge, land bridge,
yes, who have balls of steel, those people,
and that was from our apparently best estimates between 30,000 and 160,000 years ago. So it probably took them another 10,000 years. I mean, how long do you think it took them to get from?
But those are Eurasians. Those aren't Polynesians.
So how long did it take Polynesians to get from the Pacific to the Atlantic?
To discover the Atlantic, yeah. And I'm thinking the Europeans might have illegally brought them places.
Well, that too. But I believe there was a Polynesian raft that they found somewhere in South America.
I thought supposedly landed in California.
Oh, was it California?
But I thought
the closest point from them would be, I thought, like Colombia or something. Either way,
I thought the
ago.
hypothesis or theory that they took like one of those currents, and the currents was near the Arctic. But the Atlantic Ocean is the youngest ocean. Yes, the new and improved model. Pacific is perhaps one of the oldest oceans in the world. For the Atlantic, it started around the Jurassic period, Nick. I mean, fucking dinosaurs, fucking baller. About 180 million years ago.
That's quite a bit younger. The Pacific, born 750 million years ago. It's had some time to mature, like a nice whiskey.
Or age and rot like a grape on a vine lasted too long.
Well, that just seems uncalled for.
I mean, the evidence is not in your favor. I mean, more countries border the Atlantic Ocean than the Pacific.
Well, okay, so here, for the first kind of canoe voyages, started in the Pacific 3000 BC. So from 3000 BC, how long do you think they made it to North or South America, starting from Taiwan?
I'm gonna guess it's gonna be another 2,000 years before they even get to the Americas.
So,
and then
okay, so
how
there's
long to get across the Americas?
I mean, yeah, I have no idea.
I mean, you're lucky the Atlantic Ocean decided to show up, because about 59 million years ago, the Atlantic became part of the global thermoline circulation. The connection that connected the oceans together. The final piece of the puzzle. The coup de grace. You always save the best for last. And, well, look at the Atlantic. Pacific first. Pacific's like grunts. You kind of send them through first just to get everything done. And then you send in the best of the best. The Delta Force. The smaller groups. The more refined groups that take more training, more time to make sure with those high-end missions. Yeah. Your big army, Nick. Your big army.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned size, Mike. Let's talk about size.
Okay.
So the Pacific Ocean is roughly 63.8 million square miles. That's a big number. So
it's like a third of the Earth's surface, right?
About. If you were to take every continent and put it in the Pacific, you would still have water. It wouldn't fill it up. Has an average depth of 1,300 feet. Covers more than 30% of the Earth's surface. 25,000 islands, 171 million cubic miles of water, or 50.1% of the Earth's water.
See, I'm less impressed by your numbers because the Atlantic Ocean is a little over 1/5 the Earth's surface water, which is 20%. You're at 30%. Your average depth, was only a few thousand feet more. The average depth of the Atlantic is close to 12,000 feet. Your big numbers, I mean, don't really hold up too well. They're only off by a few margins, and well, later on in the podcast, those margins are disappearing.
So, did you know if you were to bore straight into the Earth in the Pacific, you would bore straight out back into the Pacific because it's that big, depending on where you bored into.
Or you just have a really bad miner.
Well, either or.
You're really caught up on size. Wow. I did not realize quantity was more important to you than quality, Nick.
Well, explain to me the quality of the Atlantic.
Okay.
Because to me, I'll let you go after this. To me, the Pacific is like a huge national forest that is national forest. There's roads into it, but how many people have gone deep into it? The Atlantic is more like your local county forest where there's like roads, parking lots, paved roads. You can drive through the whole thing, walk through most of it. You can see everything.
See, in my mind, the Pacific is, well, it is the largest desert, technically.
Well, that is true.
Most life is only found on near landmass, and there ain't that much in the middle of it. I mean, from what we've seen so far. And it's more like a barren desert more than a rich forest. And yeah, you have bigger waves, which, okay, that doesn't really do anything. I mean, they might be impressive to watch, but if we're going to talk about biggest, I mean, the Atlantic has the highest tides in the Bay of Fundy, located in Canada. I mean, and if you're going to talk about reefs, because I assume you will, your reefs aren't that much bigger than ours. The second biggest reef in the world is Cancun Reef.
You know what they say about winning, right? If you ain't first, you're last.
Well, luckily for us, this is planets and continent sizes, so it's a turtle race, not a rabbit race. Of course, you're quite a quick finisher, so you're probably used to thinking you come in first when the race isn't over yet. The Atlantic Ocean is saltier than the Pacific Ocean.
So I don't mean to interrupt you, but that was a good job.
Thank you. I'll take my moments. And to be civil, I think we can both agree our ones and twos might be different, but we both probably agree that the Atlantic and the Pacific are the greatest oceans of the 5 oceans.
Oh, onesie twosies for sure.
Okay, just being civil, because I know.
we have to agree. Number 3, Arctic Ocean.
Yeah, probably Arctic, then Indian, and then the new Southern Ocean. But speaking of islands, something I love. You might not. I'll be honest. I like how deadly the Atlantic Ocean is. Yes, the Pacific Ocean is deadly, but the Atlantic Ocean is more deadly even if you have equipment and you're safe. There's a place I now want to visit. It's called Iceberg Alley. It's near Greenland. And somewhere between 400 to 800 icebergs pass through this every year. Does the Titanic ring a bell?
Okay, so we're going to get into... I have a list of the 15 most famous shipwrecks. Some of them. So let's walk through them real quick. Number 1, the fleet of Kublai Khan, Pacific. Spanish Armada, 130 ships disappeared, 1588, Atlantic. RMS Titanic, Atlantic. Empress of Ireland, 1914, Atlantic. Estonia, 1994, Atlantic. Andrea Dora, Atlantic. HMS Victory, Atlantic. MV Donna, Pacific. Carpathia, 1917, Atlantic. And the Lusitania, Atlantic. Definitely more famous shipwrecks in the Atlantic for sure, because you had more travel, because it was easier. I will give you that.
Oh, and we have way more shipwrecks in total number, not just famous ones. And since you bring up quantity, I mean, just how dangerous and mauling these oceans can be is bringing down thousands of ships. Nick, I mean, the numbers don't add up for you. Your biggest feature is
But
you
how
have
many
a
of those
biggest
shipwrecks
desert.
were Germany? A lot of them.
Not really. I mean, off the coast of North Carolina, not South Carolina this time, in a place called Graveyard of the Atlantic, just off North Carolina, more than 5,000 ships have been lost to that one area. And that's not even the biggest area that loses ships.
I will give you, but okay, I will definitely give you more shipwrecks in the Atlantic, but I believe that's because of the increased commerce in the Atlantic versus the Pacific at the time of when we were in the losing ships age.
We are still losing ship age, and since the recording of master, some specific name, I don't know. This is Wikipedia. They have some special name for it. Ever since like the 20th century to now, we've recorded like ship losses. Atlantic still wins, both in the olden times and new times. It's just that devastating.
And speaking of olden times, what were they transferring from Africa to the United States?
Oh, probably slaves.
Probably
Yeah,
slaves. Okay, that's right. That's what I
yeah.
thought.
Where are you getting modern products from? What they're made by who?
That'd be China.
Ah, okay. And that comes across which ocean?
Also from slaves, but no one dies at sea. Well, some people
Okay.
die at sea,
Okay.
but less than the Atlantic slave trade. Oh, that's right. You had a slave trade named after you.
Yeah. We unfortunately did a dark spot in history. If you look at your history, it's less important. It's less vital to humanity how we got here.
Well, now let's take a minute to argue that. So, I want to talk about the history of the Pacific and what it means to modern countries. After everyone fought over the scraps of the Atlantic, after the United States became a country, everyone very quickly realized there was a lot of islands, like I said, 25,000 islands in the Pacific, that were ripe for the taking. Those islands, these small islands that probably meant nothing to no one, yes, it can be called colonialism, but those islands are what made America the country it is today. These islands, these small islands that the U.S. came and fought the Spanish, the English, the French for, it's what
Portuguese.
Portuguese, name a European power, they wanted these islands as well. Yes, the War of 1812 and the American Revolution marked America as somewhat of a country to deal with, but the American exceptionalism and expansion in the Pacific is when it really became a country to actually reckon with, because these other countries, these old world countries, had to deal with us being there and being really good at what we do, mainly fighting. These islands that America and everyone fought for really put America on the map as a country that fights. You want to take something from us, you're going to have to pay for it.
Are you talking about the islands that we initially bombed and got radioactive, so you can't use
No,
them?
I'm talking
Or
way before that. Way
okay,
before
so
that.
you're talking about the are you talking about the islands where now that we got and owned but not maintained, and now they're completely covered in trash because it keeps washing up on their shores, and Pacific Ocean's just a trash bin?
Well, probably. I mean, so here's the thing. America sent people out to these islands to conquer them because we didn't want anyone else to have them. We gained our reputation as a country because, and this is the thing we learned in the War of 1812 and after, is that people really didn't respect the United States until a while later. And it was only after this fighting in the Pacific that we were able to gain footholds and continue to almost Cold War fight these other countries that really put the United States on the map. And that's what I think the Pacific, the history of the Pacific Islands is a long, long history. I mean, like I said, people have been from Taiwan, the first canoe to the islands 30,000 years ago, 30,000 years BC, but it really helped establish America as a country through the colonialism that happened there. It established the fighting force of the United States. The Marine Corps they got their start in 1775 in a bar, but they really proved themselves fighting on these islands.
So what you're saying, everything what the Marines did before then didn't matter until they started taking those islands?
No, I'm saying this really put them on the fucking map.
So you are saying that then, like that, everything they did was not of note. It was only until this that the Marines actually made
Well, I
something
mean, I'd say the
noteworthy.
first of note would be fighting Montezuma for Thomas Jefferson, TJ, my man. But really, these small conflicts that led to the rise of the United States, I think, really set us on the path that we are on today, which is, unless you disagree with me, Mike, the greatest country in the world.
For now, I agree. But I also love how you use the Atlantic slave trade and then you immediately go into colonialism and conquering islands as a counter argument.
Oh,
There's a bit
no,
of
no.
ironically there.
Well, okay, so here's the thing. Slave trade is different from conquering a little bit. There's a little bit of a distinction there.
A little bit, just a little, but still not the greatest.
No, I mean, there's definitely a distinction.
It is funny how you say it put America on the map. I mean, it's definitely important. I think all American history is important, but it didn't really put America that far on the map. It may have made us more recognizable, but didn't make us any stronger or more powerful. Because you know what makes power true, and we've talked about it in multiple podcasts. As long as the money's flowing, your power gains and everyone's happy. And there's nowhere else in the world, except for maybe the Suez Canal that's as important, as the North Atlantic Sea Route. It's the busiest in the world, Nick. A quarter of all the world's foreign trade goes through this route. You took islands as a show of force, but it didn't really get you anywhere. The Atlantic set up trade routes to start bringing goods, trade, money, ideas, knowledge, back and forth between multiple continents. There's a bit of a lopsided argument if I say you got ports or you have goods. I'd rather have goods than ports, because an empty port means there's no goods.
So hypothetically, do you think if we shut off the North Pacific and North Atlantic, which trade routes do you think would impact the U.S. more?
Well, after COVID, I used to think it was the Pacific because we got so much shit from China. But after COVID, I think it's the Atlantic more. The main reason is because 99% of all the network data, the internet, is transferred through the Atlantic. How the internet works, when we did that episode, all those wires all across, them fixing it, them bringing it back and forth, them setting up trade to make sure if a anchor hits a wire or such like that. That's 99% of the internet trade, internet knowledge transferred back and forth. A quarter of world's foreign trade. I have to go with the Atlantic being shut off being much more devastating, not just to the United States, but to the world.
Okay, so I think there's a difference. You're talking about trade routes being cut off, but I feel like trade routes is different from what's it called? Underground wires being cut off. I feel like there's a difference there.
I would still say the Atlantic. Again, quarter of the world's foreign trade goes through this route. When the entire world goes into economic collapse, America feels it too. And with the North Atlantic trade route, multiple countries, 25% of the world, is getting trade some way through that route. That's a big loss in the pocket. And I think COVID showed we don't have to be as dependent on southeastern countries for our trade routes.
I also agree that we should not be as dependent on southeastern trade routes, but I also think that, yes, the English Channel is the busiest trade route in the world, but second up is the Strait of Malacca, no idea if I'm pronouncing that right, which is the route between the Pacific and Indian, and then the Panama Canal.
Which is a bit of column A, column B.
Yeah, so I feel like, well, I don't know, that's a good question. If we shut down the internet, would that would probably hurt us more than stopping receiving goods from China. But I also imagine if we stopped receiving goods from China, we'd just shut down too. So I don't know if I'm ready to give that to you. I'll say it's 60-40. I'll say you probably won that one. I'll agree that the internet is important, but I also don't think we can live without goods from China.
Well, I'm not even talking about receiving goods. A lot of U.S. income is sending out domestic products and we usually send them to Europe. They have money. We want their money.
Well, you're not talking about trash because we send that over the Pacific.
Oh yeah, that Pacific is there. It's a cesspool.
So
even your acidity level is getting higher.
This is a point I'll give you. I had columns for my points under. I had wonders of the Pacific. One of them is the garbage patch.
Which one? The eastern or western one?
Western.
The one that has 224 million tons of plastic?
That is the one. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. Interesting. That's not good, Nick. And here's where, again, trash and your size come disadvantage. You know where most space debris lands because it's so big and it's a trash pool and the cesspool and no one really cares if more trash lands there? The Pacific.
Because it's so fucking big? Do I need to say that again?
Yeah, it works against you.
What are the odds? 30% of the world's surface area. It's gonna fucking land there. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, that's not a good thing. A bigger target. It's easier to hit a broadside of a barn than a refined, nice, slender ocean. It's
all right. Calm down, Elon Musk. It's not a Tesla.
But it is. I mean, I'll be honest with you, Nick. Looking up pictures of the plastic in the Pacific Ocean, it's disgusting. It's vile.
Well, you can't have the good without the bad.
I think the bad probably outweighs the good. That much plastic, you said, talking about fish, it's killing a lot of your fish.
Well, I mean, let's put that in perspective. I mean, there's microplastics in everything.
True.
I think the freshest fish I can find is going out in the ocean and catching fish. So I'd rather eat that over a store-bought fish any day of the week.
Oh, true. Completely agree with you. But I do find it a bit ironic that there's more travel and sea routes in the Atlantic than the Pacific, but yet the Atlantic has less trash even though it has more traffic.
Well, it also has more developed countries.
I don't know about that. We both have South America. You have parts of Asia and parts of Australia. Atlantic has parts of Africa. I think it's about even.
But also the parts of Asia we have is where the United States ships their trash to be disposed of.
Used to. We no longer do that. Now it goes to Africa.
So used to.
It goes to Ghana now. But sticking on, because I'll be honest with you, I didn't really want to touch that much on plastic, because I'll be honest, that feels like a low blow, because that makes me sad. I don't want to see the Pacific covered in trash. That makes, even though I want to win, I don't want to win that badly.
Well, you know what they say about pollution. The solution to pollution is dilution, and the Pacific's got it.
I want to switch a little bit since we're talking about fish. That way I don't have to hit any low blows with plastics. Sharks. You know which ocean has the most shark species? Oh, yeah.
Again, is this a pro or con?
Oh, it's to me a pro. One, I love sharks. Two, I like things that can kill me. So
well, as someone who kayak fishes, it may seem like a con, but that's just me.
Well, to me, I'm looking at directly America. There's more attacks in the Atlantic than there are in the Pacific, and to me, that's kind of a pro. I mean, that's kind of fucking cool.
Well, that I think says more about the ineptitude of people who vacation in the Atlantic than anything else.
Oh, that's right, because everyone fled the Pacific and California because they don't want to be.
Well, because here's the thing: anymore. It's fucking cold in the Pacific.
Oh, so we have better beaches? Interesting.
Well, because it's a smaller ocean, it gets a little bit warmer, but not as warm as the Pacific. Pacific's actually the warmest ocean.
But yet people don't really get to swim in it, either because of the coldness, the waves, or the trash.
Here's and I'll give you this. The reason why, like I said, the Pacific is a third of the ocean, a third of the world. A lot of it lies along the equator, so it's warmer. The Pacific is, at least from my thoughts, a colder ocean because it's so big. It's not like the Atlantic where you can swim into it more north. The Pacific is not that way because, again, it's bigger, so it's colder. And again, I think that speaks to how wild the Pacific is. It's not some ocean you can just fuck around and find out with. Like, you have to be on your game. You can't just fuck around in the Pacific. You can fuck around the Atlantic. I've fucked around the Atlantic. I fucked around the Pacific too, but
Nick, tell that to all the families of all the sailors lost, because there's more lives lost in the Atlantic than there are in the Pacific. And one, I don't think there's any ocean I will fuck around with. Those are behemoths. Like, I'm an ant, not even an ant to them. I don't even know how to fathom to either both any ocean, my size to them. I am minuscule. They will chew me up and spit me out. But speaking of spitting out, do you know where whales get beached the most? You know, in fact, they beach themselves to get out of the disgusting ocean. Oh, yeah. Those are the whales in the Pacific Ocean.
Do they beach themselves the most, or are they fucking killed the most? Because we have a lot more orca whales, which are killer whales, and they fucking kill whales. So,
Beached.
yeah, because whales run inland to get away from the orcas.
This is happening in Southeast Asian Philippines region, so it's not orcas.
Okay, so I have no idea about that then.
But it is interesting, even though the Atlantic has more baleen whales, we have a lot less beaching of whales. It's almost like our whales like our water, and they prefer it. It's better for their wildlife, for their life, rather than trying to escape and get onto land.
Well, you know how we get rid of beached whales in the Pacific? It's called fucking dynamite.
Yep, I know that story. It's a very interesting story. It's pretty fucking funny. But you know what's also friendly to wildlife? The Atlantic Ocean. Surprise, surprise, once again. It has the largest number of nesting sea turtles. They're all found in the Atlantic. Nick, why do you hate sea turtles?
Because they are immune. Because they can't handle straws, Mike. That's why.
So, do you stick straws into turtles' noses?
Well, I also believe sea turtles like a little bit warmer waters, which we don't have a ton of by me. So, no.
So you're
comment.
not denying sticking straws into turtles' noses. Interesting. I guess that's just
well,
a
if they
Pacific
like
fan of
cocaine,
you.
I don't know what to tell you.
But hey, I know you like fish. What about the cochleath fish? A fish scientists used to
The
think
coelacanth?
that thing.
Yes.
I might not be a smart man, and I'm not able to speak, but golly, I'm going to try. This fish, the scientists thought were extinct until 1938, until they found it. You know where they found it? The Atlantic.
Because people stopped fishing there because it was so overfished, everything was fucking dead.
You say that, but there's the most fishing happens in the Atlantic compared to the Pacific. Compared to all oceans, most fishing happens in the Atlantic.
That's a number I couldn't confirm because I found numbers saying the Pacific was the most fish and the Atlantic. So I was going to go back and forth on that. I've also found numbers that 60% of the world's fish came from the Pacific.
No, that is correct. This is, again, me not wanting to be a low blow and cheat you, because you've been very kind to me and giving me points. I'll give you points. More fish is caught in the Pacific. There are more fishermen and fisheries in the Atlantic.
Okay. Well, that makes sense. I mean, like I said, there's more developed areas along the Atlantic than there is the Pacific.
Yeah. Can't believe
let's go down the United States, the east coast of the U.S., New York,
Massachusetts, Pennsylvania, Delaware, North Carolina.
I was trying to
South
think
Carolina.
of big ports.
Oh, Miami.
Miami. I mean, North Carolina a little bit. I mean, the shrimp boats that come out of that fish in Florida from Louisiana, all up and down the coast. But there's not as many centers for population in the west coast of the U.S. Just the west coast of the U.S. I mean, you got LA, you got San Fran, and Seattle.
Those are not cities to be proud of compared to the East Coast.
Well, you also have New York, so glass houses, my friend.
But we also have New Orleans.
That's like a yay and nay. That's like right there. It's like a town you probably should be proud of, but it's also a town you don't tell your relatives about.
It's a town you visit.
Exactly. But I do like this biodiversity thing. So let's talk about biodiversity.
Oh, please continue.
Oh, let me scroll down. Or scroll up. Okay, so let's talk about coral reefs. 75% of the world's coral reefs are found in the Pacific. It's called the Coral Triangle. 600 different species of coral reefs are found there. Again, 75% of the world's coral reef species one ocean in a 600 in an area in the Pacific, just 75%. That's a pretty big number.
Yeah, it is, and it's a shame that since the Pacific Ocean is so polluted, they're bleaching all the corals, so it doesn't even matter.
Well, is that pollution or is that the Earth getting warmer?
Both.
Well, I mean, that's going to happen in the Atlantic too.
Happening much slower, which means the reefs will last longer and have a higher chance of adapting to it.
Well, it'd be a shame to lose 75% of the world's coral biodiversity.
It would
be. All in the Pacific.
If only there hasn't been mass extinctions before and somehow life finds a way.
Okay, motherfucker, that's been my argument for a long time.
I love, dude. I'll be honest with you, Nick. You can give me any argument, and I can be able to argue it. So it's fun pulling the strings. It's just it's so fun.
So and this is what I find I like, and this is how I feel about forests. Right?
Why the fuck are you bringing trees into this?
It's gonna make sense. So there's, like, people talk about old growth, and it's definitely important to keep old growth alive because how often do you see that? But I will give you this, Mike. There are some species of coral in the Atlantic that are really cool, specifically black coral. Black coral grows about a rate of, I think it's like 1/10 of an inch a year. It's most often found in around the Caribbean area, and a lot of people pirate it because it looks really good in jewelry, but it is, to me, probably the coolest species of coral found in the Atlantic. Its biggest threat is piracy, more than anything else. And here's the thing about trees, where it's like, yes, we need to protect all this, but what if we just protect like the most important stuff instead of focusing on all this other stuff? I mean, yes, you want to protect everything, but there is an argument for protecting the stuff that is the most diverse, the slowest growing, the stuff that needs the most help. And to me, that is the black coral in the Atlantic.
Well, I agree with you that we need to prioritize. We don't have the budget or resources to not prioritize. Unfortunately, we can't save everything. So I agree with you there that many things, I think we both agree the ocean just in general, whether it be any of the 5 oceans, absolutely gorgeous, stunning, and have very unique properties, and should try our best as humanity to save them.
So speaking of saving things, let's talk about the opposite of that. We talked a lot about water. Let's talk about fire, Mike.
Okay.
Volcanoes. 75% of the Earth's volcanoes in the Pacific. It's called the Ring of Fire. Fucking wild.
I just love how your argument is a large, hot, deep hole.
Yeah. Because okay, so this is my thinking. If I'm going to go out in my kayak, right, and fish an ocean, I want to fish the wild, most untamed place people can't go to. I want to be in the water. I want to be at the mercy of nature. And that is the Pacific to me.
See, now I'm confused. Because earlier you said with my sharks being more lethality, that was a negative for you.
Well, that's for normal people. I am not normal people.
Okay. I think we both agree that we like the danger aspect is the fun aspect. No, I'm not. I won't diss. The volcanoes are cool.
It's what gave us Hawaii, or as the locals call it, Hawaii, which I hate to say. But
all right, Butters.
Of the Hawaiians I know, they would be upset if I didn't pronounce it, or at least try to pronounce it correct.
But Nick, I'll be honest. You're using large, deep hole.
Well, here's my argument, Mike. You got 2 places, right? One calm, tranquil. You got one fucking dangerous. Where'd you rather go?
Oh, the more dangerous one, the Atlantic. That takes more lives yearly.
Fuck up. That's because it has more people in it. You have the East Coast is fucking populated, and that's what's great about the West Coast of the US. What is the opposite of populated? That's what the West Coast is. Our huge town, our big town on the coast is 33,000 people. I feel like we could fit the entire West Coast of the US into New York City.
No, dude, Los Angeles alone, I think, is bigger than New York City.
Okay, well, I don't really know how many people live in New York, but I've
I
been
think
there.
it's like
And it's
I
pretty
think it's
big.
only like I think it's like 11 million people.
Okay, well, I've never been to LA, but
L.A.
The tacos in LA are great. So, but LA North, it's not that populated. You got San Francisco, but then north of that, you have Seattle. So we're going to go West Coast. So San Fran's probably what, North Carolina when you go across the country. Do you have a lot of big towns north of whatever, Charleston, North Carolina? You just have more population there. Right? It's like the same argument of what's more dangerous, cows or sharks. You have more people who interact with cows on a daily basis than sharks. So cows are more dangerous.
No, I would still
Which
rather
leads
mess with
me
a shark than a cow.
into, if cows are more dangerous than sharks, is the Atlantic really that dangerous?
Well, tell you what. How about you go shark swimming? Because I want to do that. We can go off the coast of.
I've been
something.
shark swimming.
You have? Oh, I'm jealous. Oh, you probably were in a cage though.
No, well, they're just sharks that don't hurt people.
Oh,
or like they
nurses sharks or
they
something
have
like that?
food there, so it's like they eat the food and stuff. So they don't
okay.
eat the people.
I have a very different image in my mind. I want to go on a night swim, chum the area, go swing to the bottom, and be surrounded by sharks.
Okay, so that's called a death wish. It's a little bit different.
It's not. Listen, that's not how I want to go, but I think that'd be really fun to just fucking try.
Just fucking send it, bud.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially, and I probably can't do it in the ocean that's named the most peaceful ocean. Definitely couldn't do it in there.
Okay, well, just because the fucking Spanish got it wrong is going to be the whole argument, I'm not here for it. Because other things the Spanish got wrong,
the Inquisition,
harboring Nazis, siding with the Nazis during World War II, the Spanish Inquisition.
Nobody
Do you
expects.
Want me to keep going?
Well, the thing is, you say the Spanish got it wrong, but you even got it wrong. It wasn't the Spanish who named it; it was the Portuguese.
But they were sailing on behalf of the Spanish.
Correct. But where does the word come from?
The Spanish,
who was the captain who named it? It comes from Portugal.
But under the Portuguese flag, and we know how that works. Many people sailed under other countries' flags. I mean, what's his name? Columbus wasn't sailing under he was sailing under the Spanish flag? He was English,
yes,
right?
I think, no, he was Italian, right?
He was Italian, but he was sailing under another country's flag.
I think it was Spanish.
But that's how colonization
works. Yeah.
Whatever flag the boat flies under, that's who gets assigned the blame. We know that.
Just change your coat and you're good to go.
And that's how pirates work too. Oh, I am your friend. Oh, nope, not anymore. And that's something I will give you. Piracy, way better than the Atlantic.
And in certain terms, I don't know about all the terms.
I mean, you have more of a history of piracy.
True.
And it's a super cool history. I mean, if we're debating, yes, I do wish the Pacific had a little bit more history of piracy because, God, that's so cool. Like, I love how we could just, like, back then, you could be working for whatever country and like, oh, I will also be, what's the, so at that time, politically correct term for pirate?
Privateer.
Privateer for whatever country you wanted to be and just take whatever goods you wanted from another country. Like, that's pretty cool.
Nick, I'm not even going to have to argue for the Atlantic. You're making the argument for me. Are you sure you're a Pacific fan?
Oh, we're not done yet, my friend.
Well, I do want to make a counter argument to your Ring of Fire.
Okay.
The Atlantic is home of the Sargasso Sea.
Sargasso Sea?
Sargasso
God damn it,
Sea.
Mike. It wouldn't be a true episode if you didn't mispronounce things, so I shouldn't be getting ahead of myself.
Which is located in the middle-ish of the North Atlantic, and it's the only sea in the world to be a sea without a coast. To be that massive, that big, to be that different and unique, to be a jewel on this blue dot floating through space, happens to be right in the Atlantic.
I mean, is it really part of the Atlantic?
It's like smack dab in the Atlantic. It's pretty middle-ish of North Atlantic, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So I was thinking of something else.
Oh, are you thinking about our many trips? Like, we have the Bermuda Triangle, which is one of the histories. And
Are we going to talk about wonders of each ocean? Because here we fucking go.
oh, yeah, we can gladly talk about that. Why don't you take it away?
Well, I'll start off with the Pacific, with the Great Barrier Reef, 1,429 miles of reef. We also have, like I said, the Coral Triangle, where 600 species, 75% of the world's coral species, which is also spawning grounds for tuna, which is a pretty important crop for both oceans. The Mariana Trench, the deepest point in the Earth, 1,500 by 43 miles wide, 7 miles deep. We also have Easter Island. And again, like I mentioned previously, the Great Pacific Garbage Patch. You're welcome. The largest wave ever recorded at 1,720 feet in I mispronounce this, is Mike moment, Lituayu Bay, Alaska, and home to several nuclear weapons which have not been found. Your move, Mike.
The Great Barrier Reef. Well, Atlantic has their own as well. 700 miles long along the east coast of Mexico, Brazil, Guatemala, and Honduras.
Wow, 700 miles. That seems a little bit less than 1,429 miles, but continue.
Isn't that, didn't you say square miles?
No, that's just how long it is. Not square miles. Just
okay.
how long it is.
Gotcha. You're comparing against size and length. Gotcha. Wow.
Well, length's pretty important.
Yeah, it's the first time in your life. Now, it is
also true.
It is very interesting. You say Eastern Islands. You mean the island of a group of people who failed to manage resources and ended up dying and was a pretty much failed society? You talking about that island?
Which is also a wonder of the world.
It's a wonder why?
Because they built some cool stone people and it's impossible to get there.
Oh, so all the other structures that are now some underneath the water, some across. I mean, depending on how you define Atlantic, and I didn't really want to go here, but the Mediterranean.
Well, let's fucking go there. Well, I don't think the Mediterranean Sea counts as Atlantic.
It falls underneath the Atlantic Ocean.
Oh, okay. So yes, we sailed the coastline to conduct trade. Like, that's fucking cool.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Grow some balls.
Can you not see the pyramids of Giza from the Mediterranean Sea? Oh yeah, you can.
Can you not see you're almost guaranteed a spot of the Pacific Ocean from space. So if we're talking about what you can see.
Oh, we can also see the Atlantic Ridge from space. I mean, it's not that hard to see giant oceans and structures from space. I mean, being noticeable is not very hard for any ocean, to be honest with you.
I just want to go back to the largest wave. I don't know if we talked about it enough. 1,720 feet. That's fucking insane.
No, that is impressive. It's very interesting. Too bad it's a one-off, and again, not like the highest tides every year.
Well, if you have a small ocean, it's easy to go up and down.
Wouldn't it be the small ocean also be easier to form bigger waves because it's less?
Well, it doesn't have time to build up.
I think you're right, but I don't know. But
I love how you're glancing over that it's home to several nuclear weapons, and you just didn't even.
Oh, I haven't gotten there yet.
Okay,
I haven't gotten there yet. I'll be honest, Nick. Countries lose nuclear weapons all the time. We've done entire.
But how many lose them? Well, also a lot.
Yeah, I know. That's why I just said countries lose nuclear weapons all the time. We've done an episode where there's a nuclear bomb somewhere in India. They just people lose nuclear weapons. It's not, I mean, are you surprised of the government's bureaucracy and ineptitude to maintain holding on nuclear weapons?
Well, that's unfair. I am never surprised at any government's ineptitude.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's lost nuclear weapons. There's, to be honest, as we get more into the 21st century, it almost seems like a dime a dozen, especially about the 20th century, of how much we didn't care, of just dropping hydrogen bombs on the Pacific Ocean because it doesn't really matter, on nuclear bombs because in the Pacific Ocean it didn't really matter. You want to save the purity of the Atlantic Ocean because it's just so beautiful. You just don't want to ruin it.
The reason everyone tested bombs in the Pacific is that it was so fucking big. Obviously, bad idea. We know that now. We learned things. But there was room to do it. And it was probably at the time a great idea. Now, I don't exactly know where the right spot to test nuclear weapons is. So if you have a better idea, I'd love to hear it. Again, not. I definitely recognize the impact that was made on the. I mean, we lost all the knowledge of Pacific Islander navigation because of that. Not good. But again, I don't really know where we're supposed to test nuclear weapons.
Mars.
Okay, that's actually a lot more expensive than the Pacific Ocean. So take that up with the accountants. Well, we did test them also on the Pacific Ocean, but we called it a different thing.
Yes. To me, honestly, it seems like the Pacific Ocean is just like the Midwest, the United States. Wide, open, vast, a lot of corn, more corn. A couple.
Sir, this is uncalled for.
Couple of sight seats, and there's the world's biggest violin. That really.
But you also have some of the greatest prairies in the world. You have bison. You have some of the most untouched wetlands. I mean, the Midwest in itself, yes, is corn, but it also has some of the most rich biodiversity of the world. Is that what you're arguing? Because I would agree with that.
I would not say that it's the most rich or one of the richest biodiversities in the world.
Well, I mean, the Great Lakes, just the fish. I mean, you have steelhead. You have all the different birds that stop there on their migration. I mean, it's a pretty. I mean, American bison, Mike.
Yeah,
American bison.
A few good does not competend for the entire whole. Like, you got killer whales. That's pretty cool. That's the bison of the Midwest. You start running out real fast. And Nick,
we also have more than 70% of the world's fish come from the Pacific.
Yeah,
we have the most marine life.
Quality, not quantity. Sorry, quantity, not quality.
So let's talk about species that are only in the Pacific. The dugong, which is a mammal, which is descendant or branch off of the same species of the elephant, which is a marine species. How fucking cool is that?
Is that the one that kind of looks like a manatee?
Yeah, it looks like a manatee, but it's more closely related to elephants than anything else. And it lives in the ocean. I mean, how fucking cool is that? Whale sharks, sea lions. Do you have those in the Pacific, just by any chance?
No, but we do have bull sharks, which is a shark that can go from saltwater to freshwater and actually can invade the United States by swimming up the Mississippi.
Speaking of the Midwest.
I mean, you got to take out the Midwesterners somehow. I can say that because I am a Midwesterner.
I mean, most marine life is in the Pacific Ocean.
Yeah, no, I'm not disagreeing. Just, again, quantity versus quality.
So what's this quality species? What is this species there's few, but it's so fucking cool that we need to protect it? What is this species that you're talking about the quality of in the Atlantic?
Whales.
Well, we have whales in the Pacific. This is fucking stupid.
More whales travel between the Arctic to the Atlantic than anywhere else.
The Arctic. That almost seems like it's not the Atlantic.
Did you not hear my entire sentence at all?
Travel from the Arctic to the Atlantic?
Yeah.
I mean, most whales breed in warm water and then travel up into the Arctic for sure. Right now, it's whale season on the Pacific coast, and where everyone can go see whales. How many I've seen a bunch of whales. Okay, not a bunch. I've seen 3 whales on the Pacific. I've seen 2 gray and a pod of killer whales.
I mean, isn't the number one spot in the world to see whales on the Atlantic Ocean in Canada?
That seems like a diss.
Isn't it near like
you have to go to Canada to see whales? Pass.
I mean, weren't you just arguing earlier that Canada is just pretty much part of the United States?
Well, I mean, basically. But I don't have to show my passport to see whales in Oregon.
So switching the argument to see how it is to suit you. Gotcha.
Yeah, that's it. What we're doing here, Mike. It's called a debate.
Changing up what you believe in. Gotcha. I mean, see the most icebergs, the icebergs that just destroy everyone. See the most whales. I'll be honest, Nick. If I had to choose between a sea lion or a whale, I'm choosing a whale. Now, you might like all that blubber,
I might like to
barking
see
noise.
all those whales. How many whales have you seen on the Atlantic?
1, 2, but I don't get to travel that much to the coast, so I would say that's pretty high percentage from a person who doesn't get to
How do
travel.
you not know how many whales you've seen? That's like a life-changing, not a life-changing, but it's a pretty fucking big deal.
Well, one was a very sketchy helicopter ride, and I wasn't sure if it was a whale or not.
Oh, Mr. Poor East Coast on a helicopter ride? Shut the fuck up.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was a sketchy ass helicopter ride.
That's a fun fact. That's every helicopter ride. I don't know how many helicopters you've been in, but there's never been a helicopter I've been in that it's not sketchy.
Did yours have doors?
Mine had doors.
Mine did not.
Yes. Well, you better see the whales.
That's why I was like, my pilot did not speak English, the same language he was in, and he almost got us shot by Air Force because we were flying in restricted zones. So that's why I say pretty sketchy.
Wow. Way to brag about going to Myrtle Beach, am I right?
Luckily, it wasn't in Myrtle Beach. But no, I think all life is.
So here's the thing. I wanted to pull the whale card on you. I really did. Whale population is about equal between the two oceans, at least on the U.S. coast and both U.S. coasts. So that's why I didn't. So I didn't want to give that to you, but I mean they're about equal. You can, if you go by species, some are more, some are less each coast, but it's not. I couldn't find anything that said for sure whether each ocean had more or less whales. Unless you saw something.
Well, I saw saw about even, but more be able to see more was in Atlantic, and the having less beach whales was the Atlantic.
Well, because they each have about equal gray whales, which if you're looking from shore, that's pretty much all you're going to see is gray whales. Gray whales are the whales that are about 1 to 3 miles from shore, or 0 to 3, I guess technically.
But Nick, you're also I'm backtracking a little bit to talk about biodiversity. You know what the Atlantic also helps support, which is the most populated areas with diverse species? It helps support the jungles. Helps support both the Congo, on all of West Coast Africa, and all of East Coast South America, the rainforest.
Oh, so we are talking about pirates.
Those sand travels across the Atlantic from Sahara, along with minerals being passed into the Amazon River and the rivers in and out of those ecosystems. Because most rivers slope into the Atlantic. Because, well, all water wants to be part of the Atlantic in one way or the other. The Atlantic doesn't just support life in the ocean. It supports life outside the ocean without needing humans to go fish, kill to bring it onto land. It naturally supports it.
Well, I mean, that's the same argument for the West Coast, right? I mean, the ocean fog that supports things like the redwoods or the coastal species up from all the way down, that coastal fog. I mean, that's kind of a ridiculous argument.
Are you really comparing the redwoods to the rainforest?
They're both rainforests.
No, the Amazon rainforest.
Again, both rainforests. You just have to get above 64 inches of rain a year.
So, in your eyes, they are equal?
That's a loaded question. Each area has its own important biological necessity, but...
Nick, we're arguing. Of course it's going to be a loaded question.
Well, I know. I'm just saying, like, are you saying we should get rid of the redwoods over the rainforest? I mean, that's like what's your answer to that?
I would say the redwoods has less biodiversity compared to the rainforest with unique species and one-off species.
I mean, that's probably true, but I don't see why it also doesn't touch the Pacific, which it does.
Well, it's kind of going the same argument of your biodiversity for the reefs in the Pacific, of saying we have all these and the Atlantic has...
So your argument is that, well, the land it touches is important.
No, I'm making a comparison of the nutrients given to the Atlantic Ocean to that, and also to show and mitigate on your argument of saying that quantity.
Well,
is
most
less than
nutrients flow down river, so the nutrients made in the forest flow out to the ocean.
Yeah, no, that's what
not the other way
That's
around.
why I said most rivers flow into the Atlantic Ocean. Most water wants to be in the Atlantic Ocean. Have you not been listening to what I've been saying?
No, but that's a ridiculous argument. It's like, well, downstream of this cool thing is the Atlantic
No,
Ocean.
did you miss the entire part about like the Atlantic being able to bring the Sahara sand across the ocean to neutralize neutralize would be bad. That's what you did in the Pacific with nukes. But to give nutrients to the rainforest. It's kind of that like, and I was then making the point of biodiversity of how much little creatures there are and how diverse it is the same argument you're using of the coral reef compared in the Pacific to the Atlantic.
No, that's a little bit different in that the coral reefs actually reside in the Pacific, whereas the rainforest does not reside in the Atlantic.
It's called, I'm making an example. You're not getting the example.
No, I'm 100% getting it. You're saying because of the actions that take place on the landmass of Africa, they go across the Atlantic into the rainforest, which then help the rainforest. Because the Atlantic is in between, it is important.
It is the carrier, yes. But then also going on further with the redwoods argument, redwoods versus Amazon rainforest. I don't think you're getting what I'm trying to say. I probably might be wording it wrong, so let's just move on.
Okay.
Nick, how happy are you that America's not part of Europe anymore?
I feel like you're helping me out here, Mike, but continue.
Well, if it wasn't for the Atlantic, the continental drift wouldn't happen. And North America, South America would still be connected to Africa and Europe.
Well, how happy are you we're not part of Asia anymore, Mike?
50-50. It would make a lot of things cheaper, but...
So you'd rather live in China?
I'd rather live in neither, but the Pacific Ocean the only thing, that didn't create a landmass split.
Well, 750 million years ago it did.
No, it wasn't Pangea. No, Pangea was North America connected to Europe, South America connected to Africa, Asia curled around touching Indian and Australia. Australia never touched North America. You do realize with Pangea, the landmass would have to make a complete circle in order to touch one end to the other end. It can't be both.
Sorry, I'm looking up stuff. What are you saying?
You can't connect Pangea. If you were going to have China touch United States, it would have to have a landmass that connected all the way across the entire Earth, which it didn't. The continental drift didn't happen that way.
I mean, we did touch Asia, technically.
Technically. What? I mean, how morphed it was, yeah, I guess so. But that was like South America barely touching.
So your argument for the Atlantic is we're no longer part of Europe.
I mean, that's a pretty good argument.
It is a pretty good argument.
I mean, we fought the British once, and that was the whole entire ocean between us. Would you imagine if they were right next door? It'd be like Wales and Scotland and Ireland all over again. Which kind of leads me to my banger, Nick. I don't know if you're ready for it.
Yeah, let's go.
You keep talking about size, how big you are. I would call that fat or body dysmorphia, but that's just me. You do know...
Seems a little unfair given today's climate, but continue.
Oh, it's fine. I'm fatter than you in real life, so it works out. You do realize the Pacific Ocean's getting smaller, right? You do realize you're shrinking.
Yeah, it's shrinking by about an inch a year, which is still way bigger than the Atlantic.
1.5 to 3 inches a year. Not only that...
That's a little bit bigger than numbers I saw, but you know what, Mike? If you're going to get hung up on 2 to 3 inches, that's on you.
I mean, you're the one making the size comparison all day. Might as well. But it also depends on which tectonic plates is shifting, because it's multiple tectonic plates. We are physically fighting the Atlantic and the Pacific, and the Pacific's losing. Both where the waters touch, just south of South America, where they're trying not to mix, but the Atlantic...
And like I said, they do not mix. Well, I never said that, but they also do not mix because of the salinity.
Atlantic Ocean's a salty bastard that's pushing...
The saltiest, some would say.
Yeah, damn straight. So, I look at it in long-term scales. I mean, if you're saying an inch in geographic scales, that's a lot. Consistently, that's a lot. Especially for how young the Atlantic Ocean is compared to the Pacific. The young champ has arrived.
So you're trying to make this into some, like, Rocky movie?
Oh, it's not a Rocky movie. It's more like Boot meets Ant.
And you're the ant?
I'm the Boot.
No, you're smaller, so you are the ant.
Again, you are only caught up on size. You know there are other things important besides size. I mean, you of all people...
Right, I'm sure that's what
that.
your girlfriend tells you, Mike.
I mean, just said that, but yeah, okay.
The Pacific is
Losing a fight?
it's
Yeah.
wild. No, this is my main argument. The Pacific is wild. It's more recently discovered, more recently seen.
Wait a minute. You made the argument
more
in the beginning
unknown.
that it was discovered earlier than the Atlantic.
Okay, but it's still like there's less population there. It has a wild allure that the Atlantic doesn't have. When I see the Atlantic, when I fish the Atlantic, I have the sense of settled. I don't have that sense on the Pacific. And that's why I'm a Pacific till I die. The Atlantic is cool. I love the Atlantic. It's warm. All right, that's cool. I work in the woods. I get wet every day. I just want to be warm for once. I get it. But all the cool shit, it lives in dangerous areas, dangerous waters, cold waters. To me, that's the Pacific.
I mean, you keep saying dangerous waters. Again, that technically falls underneath the Atlantic.
Okay, because you have more shark attacks?
No, because we have more people die.
Okay, because you have more idiots there. Mike, again...
Oh, I'm sorry. Are Californians not idiots?
You also have New Jersey, so don't act like this is a one-sided argument.
I mean, New Jersey compared to California, Nick, that's... I know which one I'm taking.
In an objective argument, honestly... Okay, one-on-one, one standard Californian versus one New Jerseyan, who do you think's smarter? And again, I honestly don't know who I'll say.
I think it's Californian might be smarter.
I don't know.
That it's like a 51-49% kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly. 50.1 to 49.9. It's onesie twosie, very close.
But Nick, the Pacific Ocean doesn't even have the most storms. That's the Southern Ocean. Pacific Ocean isn't the deadliest ocean. That's the Indian Ocean. It's comparison of the two. You're the more tame one. The Pacific fits your name much better than you think.
Because we have less people. Okay, this is the same argument gun control people to say there's less crime in Idaho and New York. Like, there's less per capita crime, like, in New York than Idaho. But guess what? There's more crime in New York. Like, that's a ridiculous argument.
It's a great argument to have in your back pocket because it works really well.
Because it's true. So, is this our bangers, Mike? Because I have one really good argument, unless you had something else.
No, swing ahead. I just want to say that when push comes to shove, no pun intended, the Atlantic is winning.
How about this, Mike? You talk a lot about American independence. Let's talk about England. Does the Pacific touch the country of England? Does it have any colonies that are English colonies?
I mean, it depends on where you're in history. I mean, the East Indian Trading Company.
Right now.
Right now, yeah. Doesn't the British colonies have in Southeast Asia?
Everything I looked at said that they're pretty much retired as of 1971.
Okay. Then I believe I would assume that they still had some colonies, or at least some influential control, some non quote unquote.
Apparently, England thought colonialism was a bad look on them.
True. I would imagine so, because there was a bunch of decolonization in the 1960s, so I can imagine that.
So my closing argument is there are no Pacific waters that touch English rule.
Okay. There's no Atlantic waters that touch China.
There's always always another enemy, always a bigger fish.
Quasi. Yeah.
I'm talking about our enemy from the past. The Russians? No, before that. The Germans? No, before that. The Russians again? No, before that. But Mike, okay, so I totally forgot one of my main arguments. If you're cool to go back to
no, swing away.
Okay, so let's talk about the oceans in popular culture.
Okay.
I'm going to name some films and books from the Pacific. Finding Nemo, 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, Godzilla, Lord of the Flies. Not sure if that's a pro or con. We'll keep going. SpongeBob, Moby Dick, Robinson Crusoe, Charles Darwin, Origin of Species. Now for the Atlantic. Aquaman, Atlantis, good movie. The new Godzilla movies, also good. Jaws, like you said, Deadliest Sharks. Hunt for Red October, good movie. Perfect Storm.
Bismarck.
Never seen it.
It's Yeah, well, the Greyhound, also hunting Germans. A lot of hunting Germans.
A lot of hunting Germans in the Atlantic.
Which I'm kind of a pro for.
Yeah, but it's because they fucking decimated the Atlantic.
Yeah. No, I mean, the one point I didn't want to mention out because it's so fun and cool is the Caribbean. Yeah, pirates and stuff like that.
I mean, that seems like a pro to me, but continue.
No, it's a pro. I just didn't really want to kind of ease it in. It's kind of a weird argument, but it's just so nice to have islands so close to the United States that we can go to in warm waters to see the reefs, to be part of the ocean.
Much like the British Virgin Islands, which might I remind you remain under English rule.
It's in the best real estate.
Kings and queens are no basis for a system of government, Mike.
Tell that to our current
be
government.
Duly elected for the people by the people.
Tell that to our government.
Well, I didn't vote for it.
Yeah, no, it's, I don't know. They're both so beautiful, but I'm surprised you did not side to the Atlantic simply because of Atlantis. I know, much like me, you love Atlantis.
No, I do love Atlantis. Here's another thing. Famous things that were lost in each ocean. So for Atlantic, we have the lost city of Atlantis. But Pacific, we have, what's her name? The flying chick.
Oh, Amelia Earhart?
Amelia Earhart. And I also forgot to mention for entertainment for Pacific, McHale's Navy. So just shouting that out.
Yeah, and then
Classic.
DHBO's Pacific, the World War II
Well, yeah.
But
that's another good one.
It's good, but it's also very sad.
Also, yeah, much like the Pacific.
But going with myths too. I mean, I'm a sucker for myths and history, Nick. The lost city of Pew, P-U or P-E, I can't quite remember, which is like South America's Atlantis. They had their own Atlantis. So many cultures drive their myths, mainstream myths, from the Atlantic Ocean. I mean, the reason why there's a globe is called Atlas, because he holds the world on his back. And Atlantic does mean the Sea of Atlas. I think you gotta give some merit to the Titan holding up the earth to have an ocean named after him. It's gotta be very important.
You pagan.
I think we're just have to agree to disagree on this one.
I think so. I was really hoping to sway you to the Atlantic with my it's wilder than the Atlantic argument into the Pacific, but it doesn't seem like that's the way.
To me, every ocean's
we'll have
so
to come
wild.
out and do some kayak fishing, and then you'll see.
I mean, you had me at fishing.
She's a salty bitch,
but not as salty as the Atlantic.
She's flipped many people. It's not she's not someone you can relax around.
Maybe that's where I'll go fight sharks at night. Maybe that'll be what sways me in the Pacific. One last stand.
We got great whites.
I want a fair fight. That's not a fair fight.
Oh, I think we have some like reef sharks.
I think got tiger sharks too, right? Or is that only Atlantic?
You're gonna fight the weakest shark.
Tiger sharks?
Wait, those not the ones that krill?
No, tiger sharks are the number one human killers, I think, besides black tips. Bull sharks have the biggest one bite. Great whites are the biggest. I think tiger sharks are one of the biggest amateur ones. Tiger sharks were the ones that kept killing all the American soldiers in like the Japanese islands. They're also in the Caribbean, if I believe so, if I remember correctly.
What's the big? Oh, nurse sharks. Those are the biggest sharks, but they don't eat anything, right?
They're not the biggest sharks. They're the most common sharks, but they're little bitches.
Okay, so that's what I was thinking.
No, nurse sharks are little bitches. Tiger sharks have stripes, and they will fuck your shit up.
Well, unfortunately, we didn't solve this debate. I mean, it's pretty obvious that the Pacific won, but let us know what you think.
I mean, if we're gonna give like a
Instagram or Reddit
participation trophy, yeah, Pacific won the participation trophy. But Nick, if they want to tell us if they like the Pacific more or the Atlantic more, where could they tell us?
On Instagram and Reddit, like I just said, Mike?
Yeah, I was too busy thinking about the grandness of the Atlantic Ocean.
Really? It took you that long to think about that small ocean?
But Nick, what book are you reading right now? I hope it's something about the water.
Oh, it's not. It's a resource physiology of conifers, and unless you're really into forestry, you're not going to want to read it. What about you, Mike?
Well, it's not water per se, but it is liquid flames. I'm still reading Dante's Divine Comedy, which is it's a weird read, I'll be honest with you. Kind of translated old language talking about hell. It's a weird read. Don't know if I'm for it or against it yet as a good or bad book, but that's about it. With that being said, thank you all for listening.
Thanks for listening to the Backyard Philosophy Podcast. We rarely finish a podcast without missing a point we wanted to bring up, so let us know what we forgot. And if you have a topic you want us to talk about, let us know at Backyard Philosophy on Instagram and Backyard Philosophy Podcast on Facebook.